All right, Rabbi Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, everyone. And I'm going to try to do something a bit different from, I think, both Ellie and Margaret, in that I am hoping that this is going to work as an interactive session. It's easier with people who have their videos on because we can see each other. I don't know how well it'll work with people who we can't see, but it might do. First of all, thank you for everyone. I've just come back from a concert, not a special Shavuot concert. It was the Jerusalem Quartet at Wigmore Hall playing Shostakovich. And Bracha and I lost each other on the way home, so we had an adventure, and life has been a little testing, and I'm very tired, like probably everyone is. But the way that I would like to start is for someone, please, and I'm making a note of time, to read the text, which is, I hope, in front of you. So could someone read out loud? And Gabriel has said that everyone is able to unmute when they're going to read. So, and I think Robin has said that she's happy to read the text. At least she was flapping her hand.
I was stroking the cat, but I'm really happy to read.
Great, great. Okay, thank you.
In his youth, Rabbi Yechiel Meir of Gustian once attended a wedding in Fitzia. At the inn, they put him up in the same room as the young Rabbi Hanokh of Alexander, whom he had never met, and he was forced to share a bed with him. On the eve of the wedding, Rabbi Hanokh played the wag both in his actions and in his words, and this did not exactly serve to give his roommate a good opinion of him. But that night he noticed Hanokh leave the bed very softly and, thinking himself unobserved, go into the anteroom. Yechiel Meir listened intently. He heard a whispering that touched him to his very marrow. Whispered verses of psalms came to his ears and moved him as if he had never heard them before. When Hanokh returned, Yechiel Meir pretended to be asleep. During one of the evenings, when the 7 benedictions were recited, Rabbi Hanokh again clowned for all he was worth. He told of the merry pranks of a woman called Haneleh, the thief, and his account was so vivid that the wedding guests were convulsed with laughter. Yechiel Meir stared at him in bewilderment. Was this the same man on whose fervent words he had eavesdropped the other night? Then suddenly, in the midst of his wildest jest, Hanokh turned his head and looked straight into his eyes. And now Yechiel Meir saw before him what he had heard that night, and it was addressed to him. He trembled from head to foot.
Thank you. I think, and this is all experiment, I think what I suggest is have for everyone a chance now to read it through just to yourself, a minute or a couple of minutes, just to revise what we've just heard. And the two questions, the first is, what's going on here? And the second, how does this in any way connect to prophecy? So those are the two questions that we're going to try and penetrate if we can. So I would ask now that we let go of the text because we won't be able, unfortunately, both to look at it and to see each other. But we may go back to it later just to revise if we need to. And the first question, very open, this is all very open questions. What's going on here? What do you make of it? And you can unmute. If necessary, we'll put our hands up, but let's just have a conversation. Yeah.
For me, it's about presence.
Yeah.
Being fully present in whatever situation or whatever mode you're in.
And would you take that just a little bit further? How do you connect what the story is about with presence?
Because I think the key sentence to me is he looked him straight in the eyes.
Yeah.
And when he looked him in the eyes, he saw in his eyes his complete presence, that he was presence in his frivolity and joking and everything. And he was also present in his piety and his prayer, that he was fully in that moment, at that time, whatever it was. That's what...
Thank you. Yeah. Any thoughts, further comments, suggestions? What do you make of Hanokh? I mean, certainly Ellie has given us a very strong steer, clue, lead. But let's hear a bit more.
I'm reminded of the story, I think it's in the Talmud, of somebody asking who has a place in the world to come, and he points to a badchan, somebody who is entertaining people at a wedding, and he says he's the one who's got a place in the world to come. So there is something about making people rejoice that is
Yes.
seen as particularly holy. And the other image that comes to mind is the holy fool, which is, I think, a Christian idea, but that also is something that comes to mind.
The holy witch?
Holy fool.
The holy fool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. I can't go down that route very far because I don't know it, but it definitely sounds right. Yes. You've reminded me of the jester as well. I mean, in the presence of the king, the jester. What is actually? This is taking us perhaps a little away from the story. But what's the role of the jester with the king?
Well, that is speaking truth, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the only person who can speak truth to the king.
Yes, I'm not sure that Donald Trump does have a jester. Haven't heard about such a person appearing in the court. So the jester, the fool, the one who makes people laugh in the market. There were in our old Siddur, there was a story also about people who were jesters. They told stories, they cheered people up. The wedding seems to have been an opportunity very much to let go of some of the necessities of strict self-composure and really let your hair down. Dancing, certainly only men and separately women, but nevertheless. Now, if we take this story a little bit further, what about the role of Meir? What's his place in this story? There's a very strange sort of confusion or sentence about Meir as well. What's he doing? What's he not doing?
In my mind, he's learning about the other person and about how complex other people are. How this other fella is he has this side to him that's very cheerful and so forth, but he has this other side that you wouldn't necessarily guess at from meeting him casually.
Did you say that he's lonely?
That who's lonely? Sorry.
I may have misheard you. In your first sentence, I thought you said that he was lonely.
No, that he's learning.
Learning, right?
About other people. I'm sorry, I have something of an accent. I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's fine. It was me listening. So he's learning. He's not only learning. There's something that he does which raises a question in the story. Is he straight? Is he honest?
He's eavesdropping, isn't he?
Pardon?
Yeah, his eavesdropping isn't quite honest. He's overhearing the prayer.
Yes, I mean, it's quite straightforward. He pretends he isn't straight. He pretends that he has not overheard. He pretends to be asleep. So there's a definite disjunction set up in what's going on with both of them, because Hanokh is appearing just to play the fool, but actually has a much deeper center and an openness to the Psalms and to the prayers, while Meir pretends that he is asleep when actually he's been touched by, to the very marrow of his being, what he's heard. So there's something here that's going on. And of course, Ellie immediately puts her finger on it, because it's in the very, very, I don't remember, it's the last line, but almost the last line of the story, when in the jesting that he does and speaking about Hanokh the thief, and everyone is convulsed with laughter, and Yechiel is wondering, is this the same man who I heard praying in that way last night? At that moment, Yechiel looks directly at Hanokh, looks directly at Meir, Rabbi Meir, and in that moment, and it's interesting because we've just had Margaret speaking about Levinas and the necessity of confronting the face of the other, here there is a very, very good example of it. He is seen absolutely and pierced through by Rabbi Hanokh looking at him in that moment, straight and direct and whole, and he recognizes. Now, what I want to ask, and this is a bit chutzpahdik, but never mind, it's Shavuot. Can anyone give an example where maybe they have been touched in that sort of a way? Not necessarily by an encounter with another person, but some experience of, let's say, an encounter of that sort. I can ask it the other way around if you would like. Can one do without being touched in that way?
One of the things that comes to me, Jeffrey, is how the extent, well, certainly in Britain or England, people avoid actually looking people in the eye.
Yes.
And I've been told many times, I'm a very direct person. If you're going along the street or whatever, don't look at people. I've got quite a strong look. Don't look at people because that will unsettle them. And the whole notion of that people avoid, unless people are in intimate connection with people do avoid looking into people's eyes or looking them in the face, actually.
I think there is absolutely no doubt about that. Oh, Robin.
Yeah. I was going to say a moment where I've certainly had encounters like that is in therapy, actually. Because I'm very touched in the story about the in-between of the public and the private. The public and the private, of the private inner, I don't know, anguish or beauty that he was going, and then the frivolity that he was showing, and what it is to be awakened to that, to know that there is this space in between. And for me in therapy, it's a moment where I don't carry the public, but they get the two narratives. And, it's very personal and kind of individual, isn't it? And intimate. But yeah, I think an encounter of that kind.
I don't want only personally and in this session to think of it in the in-between of two people. I think that is essential, that one meets the other, but I don't think that is the only opportunity or the only time or the only place in which we may be sufficiently open to whatever this story is about. What are the gaze, but it's not necessarily the gaze of the other. In Buber's language, in the in-between, in the I and thou, is also Hamakom, is also God. I want to ask also, in what situation, in what place, in what time has anyone experienced that moment of complete revelation? The name of this story is Revelation. We're on the festival of Shavuot, which is the festival of revelation. What is revelation? Why is this story called Revelation? And where might one have experienced revelation?
Jeff, can I come in?
Yes, please.
There was a point where I was doing a solo theatre performance, which it was very autobiographical, but it also had some politics in it. And I don't remember exactly the script, but I was making some point to the audience that Trump was in the White House because of us. that we were all complicit. And there was a moment where there was a kind of a silence and a stillness in the, it was quite frenetic. And then there was a moment where it was very still and very silent. And I think my experience as the performer was that people were looking in rather than looking at me, and kind of questioning themselves. And in that moment, it felt to me, my experience of the happening, the event around and through the performance was, we met. The audience and I, but also the audience and each other, even though they weren't quite in a semicircle. But so that was one experience of that kind of moment of something transcendent. I don't know if it was revelation, but it was certainly an experience of transcendence for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Is anyone else able to offer an example? And I want to emphasize that I don't think that it's only necessary with another person. I know, for example, that it can happen that I know someone well for whom it was in a relationship with an animal, an absolute relationship, an encounter of man and animal. But it's not even necessarily something like that. Where else have you encountered, been open to a revelation? If you feel able to say.
I'm happy to go again with not a person to person.
Yes.
For me, by the sea, being by the sea is, I've had many moments, continuous revelation, but I'm thinking of one particular moment on the Fife Coast, which is my favorite place in the world. And I was in a very dark place that day and just couldn't actually be with people. I just wasn't able to be. So I took myself off to walk by the sea, and it was crashing everywhere, that it was bounding off the walls, and I got completely drenched. And I ended up, I guess, like in the story, laughing hysterically. It was amazing. And then I called my family and said, join me. And we stood there and got completely soaked. And there was something of revelation in that moment of just my smallness and lack of control. You name it, a lot went on in that moment. But I've had several like that. And for me, the sea is always this place to do that.
So I now will add in two other from myself. One is being out, particularly in the mountains, and at night, and when you see the stars, and there is a recognition, as you said, Robin, of how small we are in the totality of the universe, and a sense of eternity as well. Now, the question I want to turn to is, we've read the story of Hanokh. Ellie immediately picked up the gaze, the presence, the necessity and reality of presence. Where is prophecy connected with this? And that's where we're going to end. And I haven't an answer to it. This is a real open question. And we've got 11 minutes. Does it have anything to do with prophecy? Is prophecy something completely different?
Well, prophecy can start in those moments. I'm thinking of Moses and the burning bush, and Elijah and the still small voice, and even Isaiah's and Ezekiel's visions. I don't think prophecy is all about visions, but it can set that sort of very intense personal experience, can set one off on a path. Actually, Jeffrey, I did want to just you say, because you mentioned you'd come from the Jerusalem quartet, playing Shostakovich, that I had one of those very intense moments hearing a Shostakovich quartet shortly after October the 7th. And this one was written after the destruction, the bombing, in memory of the bombing of Dresden. And that was one of those moments when just everything was overwhelming, and I felt something that I hadn't been able to feel before. So
thank you. Thank you.
Margaret, you're just saying that about Moses and the burning bush made me think about what the key thing is about Moses and the burning bush, and that is that Moses noticed something.
Yes.
And that noticing, it's a bit like Jacob, God was in this place and I didn't know it. That recognition is, I think, in a sense, what connects the sense of presence with prophecy. Because
Yes.
once you notice and are aware, that awareness then broadens. You go from your little person who's in this moment to a broadening awareness. And it's a bit like Robin was saying, being about at the sea, that suddenly something is so much bigger than you. Oh, I noticed Sarah's got a hand up, Sarah Stewart, that something is bigger than you, but that you have to notice that kind of awareness, acknowledgement. And that's what happened in that moment when he looked into the eyes, that he had an awareness as if he'd seen him for the first time.
Yes, thank you. And Sarah, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to add, because I'm a teacher, and I see it quite a lot in pupils, that when something is revealed to them, when they notice something, for the fact that can very often spurs them into action. So I remember teaching, I think it was slavery, at one point, and a girl came up to me at the end and said, well, why are we doing this? What's the whole point in doing this unless we do something about it? And just in those moments where they suddenly become awake, and she revived the amnesty group in the school. So yeah, I think that's where the two things meet sometimes.
That's fabulous. What a brilliant story, in that it must give you so much to recognize how things move forward, are picked up. And I think that's a really excellent example. Robin.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing about how it links to prophecy. I love that example as well. That I think the more I learn about prophecy, the more I'm realizing it's the witnessing and it's the noticing, but it's the noticing for what? And what are you looking for and noticing? And I'm reminded of the the verse in Psalm 130, watching for the morning, that my soul is for God, watching for the morning, watching for the morning. And I think it's about that. It's about natality of what can be born and what can be created. And the prophets hold intention, being critical. This is what Walter Brueggemann says, being critical, but also energizing, that there is something that can live, there's a remnant. So I think it's about presence and noticing, but it's also about something being alive as a result of that process.
I have a feeling, and it is only a feeling, two things I want to say. One is, I have a feeling, but it's rubbish. What I'm going to say is rubbish. My feeling is that the openness to the revelation is an essential element in moving forward into action. But it's nonsense, because obviously that's not true. There are many people who in no way would recognize what we're talking about at this moment, who do wonderful things in the world. So I don't think I can pull them together as I might like to do. But the other, which I think is more important perhaps, is that I haven't rechecked this, but I read very, very carefully Heschel's The Prophets. And when Heschel is talking about the experience of the prophet, what he, I think, describes is, he speaks about the prophets standing in the assembly of God. Now, it's obviously a it's a mythical experience, not mystical, mythical. He's trying to find a language for what he understands takes place. But I think it's a very interesting. It's almost like Margaret's Sanhedrin sitting in an open circle, and there is the prophets trying to listen to, understand, make sense of where they are in the presence of God, and then finding the next level of a human language to be able to describe it. And I haven't looked back at it. I should have done in preparation for this evening, but I don't know whether I've been able to express that in a way that anyone could understand. But I think that that's what I'm trying to do there.
Does it have to always be expressible in language? I'm thinking that there are lots of moments where that awareness, the presence, the eye contacts, sometimes verbal communication, sometimes something that gives permission for something, enables and facilitates something completely unexpected, completely revelationary, revolutionary, maybe a mixture of all of that. Because I can think of moments where, Yechiel Meir is looking and he's thinking about what this guy Hanokh is like, and then he looks at him and he sees him as opposed to is explaining him, which is what Booth is often talking about. And I can think of various examples, and sometimes in group settings as well, where something is said, a response or something giving permission, enabling, facilitating, that can be transformational as well.
Thank you. I'm absolutely sure you're right. Finding words for the experience is not helpful and is not relevant. But the necessity of the Hanokh story and what was going on there is. We've come to the end, but thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. That was wonderful. And it's interesting because, you know, people said, oh, yeah, I'd like to participate. And the way this has come together, to have that sharing that you did just now and enabling us to speak was actually just really perfect for moving towards the conclusion of the tikkun, going into our final session. So thank you so much, Jeff. That was really wonderful.
Thank you. At 5 past midnight, we will be back for our final session of the evening. Sorry. Rabbi Judith Rosenberry will be with us in some form or another at 5 past midnight. She is en route from London to Oxford. Last I heard, she was cycling from Oxford Station to her house. But if she doesn't make it to her house in time, we have got video technology to enable us to see her anyway. So I will look forward to seeing you at 5 past midnight.
To get home in time to join.
Welcome, you. Well, oh, that's a video.